We got you now, buddy.
Okay, so I'm going to show you this. This is what we're going to make tonight. And we're going to have a little blackout here for a second. This also lights up.
Wow.
So,
Wow,
That's
Very
cool.
cool.
that's a cool light.
so I got this idea from Carl Jacobson a few weeks ago, but I've modified some of the ways I do it. Not saying his way was a bad way. It made it difficult. So I'll show you how he did it, explain why I changed what I changed, and you can do it however you want. You'll have both ways of doing it. So he drills he drills his hole in the bottom, which is 29/64, which fits this little light. That little light just ooh, barely it goes in there, so it's a little sloppy. So you have to glue it in. But then he also used one of his inserts that he uses in his.
You're muted,
Scott,
Scott.
you muted.
So
There,
I'll
there you
start
go.
back from the beginning. So he drills a 29/64 hole in here for the light to go in, and then he uses a insert and he hot glues it in here. Now, one of the problems I had when I hot glued it in there, if you use too much pressure or you don't get it on straight, it wobbles. And this particular blank started out round. The plastic was already round. It was a rod rather than a square. Like most of the time you get plastic, it's in a square, bottle stopper size square. And that's what I started with, was a bottle stopper size piece. I found that insert would loosen up and it would cause the piece to wobble, especially if you didn't have tailstock support. I just didn't like that idea. So, being the engineer that I am, I
Yeah.
came up with my solution. I switched to my pin jaws, which don't go down small enough to grab a hold of something that would fit in here and hold and use it as a jam chuck. So I made an expandable chuck. So this is an expandable chuck. So I turned this down so it just barely goes in that hole like that. You turn the screw on the bottom, which pulls that sleeve into that hole. And you can see I sawed slots in this so it expands outward. Okay, that was the first one I made. I made it out of wood. I didn't like that because it was hard to take it in and out of the pin jaws and get it back in the same place and make it run true. So this is my second one. It's the same procedure. The only difference is I made this out of hard plastic that I can turn on the
Okay.
lathe. So now I have a nice flat bottom for it to rest on, and it seems to run a lot truer. But it still
Got
has a
something to
draw.
register.
Yep, it still has a drawback. It does have a little flex because you got a hole that goes all the way through for that screw. So the next one I'm going to make out of a piece of aluminum and do this exact same thing, except I'm going to make it out of aluminum and turn the aluminum down to whatever size I need to make an expandable chuck.
Nice.
So this just goes in here. You turn the screw. Like so. Now it's on there. It's not coming off. So when you make this expandable chuck, it's not just drilling a hole in there. Take this one apart because it's easier to get it apart. In order to make this work correctly, it's not a straight hole. So you're going to drill the hole in there the size of that thing right there. Or just, actually, I drilled it just a hair smaller. And if you remember when I did the Kadamas, I used these tapered reamers. So I tapered that hole from front to back. So it's a little bigger at the front and a little smaller at the back. And by doing that, now you're creating this straight piece to flare the sides out to whatever you want. So just remember, you can't drill the hole the same size as that little insert, that little metal insert. You drill it just a hair smaller, you ream it, and then you saw the slots in it. And then you put your piece in it. Okay? And if anybody's got questions in the future how I did that, I will probably have, for tips and tricks, I'll actually make one of these so you can see how it's made in the future.
That sounds good.
And to release this, okay? So you got this in the piece and you can't get it out. You got your screw backed out. To release it, you just pound that back and it pulls the wedge back forward. And now it allows it to collapse back on itself to the point where you can get it in there easily. Okay? So that's one way that I solved the problem. The other problem I had is this piece is 1.5 inch round. Well, my smallest jaws either won't open far enough. My pin jaws don't open far enough. And my 50 millimeter jaws don't go small enough. So I had to make a collet to go inside there to grab that, to start the hole, to put the hole in this end. So it started like this. I rounded it a little bit, rounded this piece because it was square. This is a piece of walnut. Then I drilled my hole in here. Okay. So the one I've got on the lathe right now, when I flip the camera, that one's pretty clear. This one is pretty, when you stick the light in it, if you don't drill almost all the way to the end, it doesn't glow very well. So you just have to determine what kind of resin you have to determine how deep the hole is going to go. And all I did to determine that, like on this one, I just drilled the hole through the walnut, stuck the light in there partially, and determined whether I wanted to drill the rest of the way into this to make the walls thinner so it would glow better. So this one is, these are balloon lights, by the way, just in case somebody wants to know. I got them off of Amazon. Just type in balloon lights and you'll get 1,000 hits.
Yeah, Bob Gridstad put a link in for it.
Perfect. Thanks, Bob. So this one is pretty solid. You can't really see it. But if I turn the light off, it glows pretty good with that, just the 29/64 hole in it. And I haven't even shaped it yet, so it'll get a little thinner than what it is right now. So from that point, we'll get to the lathe. Turn my light off. Switch my camera. Any questions so far?
No, nothing yet, Scott.
So now we're on the lathe. This piece is a blue color with clear pieces like this one. It's pretty translucent. So I'm not going to drill this one all the way in because I don't want to see the hole. I'm just going to drill it so that it takes that light. So the tip of that light sits basically through the wood. You might see just a little bit of the drill bit come in, but that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to just put that up there. It's just a standard Jacobs chuck in my tailstock. Al's tip tonight. I'm doing it here so I don't drill too far. I'm going to drill this real slow.
Hey Scott, real quick, is
Yep.
that a hybrid? Is that a hybrid blank?
No, it is not. I created it.
How, how did you put the wood at the end?
So it's just like this one. Thanks to Billy Bird, I found some epoxy that doesn't stink. Um, I know we
Put it
don't
lower.
advertise. I don't advertise, but I really like this. I hate the smell of epoxy. It actually makes me sick.
Could you hold it lower and closer towards the chuck?
How about under the light?
Yeah, that
There we go.
helps.
So I took a piece of scrap walnut that everybody has in a bucket somewhere, and I epoxied it to the end of a bottle stopper blank. That's all I did.
Okay.
And I used Starbond 5-minute epoxy. It's the only epoxy I found that doesn't smell. I really like it. It seems to be strong. I kind of put it through a test to see how well it was going to stay on there. I tried to get the block off of another piece and I couldn't get it off. It actually broke the acrylic. So it soaked into the wood enough that it didn't even break the wood. It broke the acrylic first. So I'm pretty impressed. So that's how I glued that on there. You can use a hybrid blank if you watch Carl's video. He sells hybrid blanks, but they're too expensive. If you're going to do these for craft show, you're going to want to buy them in handle blank size that you would use for acrylic handles for tools or ice cream scoops, because you can get two pieces out of one blank. I made them so that you can get two pieces out of one blank. So the total overall length is 3 1/8 inches, and that can be plus or minus. That's up to you, however you want to make your light bulb. The outside diameter at the widest point is 1 3/8 inches, and then you just go from there. You just make it look like a light bulb.
Okay.
I mean, go ahead, Dane.
No, I was saying, okay, it's a good explanation on the blank there.
So now I'm going to drill this, and I'm going to drill it real slow, about 200 RPMs, give or take. And you should be able to tell when you break through the wood into the resin, because first of all, it makes a different sound and it feels different as you're cranking it in. And you just want to kiss that resin when you do it this way, and I'll show you why here in a minute. I'm going to turn this off, make sure I got it in to where I can see the resin. You know, it's roughly about 1 inch. Just a little bit more. So I'm just touching the resin. Turn my lights off here for a minute. And see how much better this one glows. I don't need to drill that hole in there because it's opaque enough that it doesn't need to go, or clear enough it doesn't need the whole hole that deep. So you can see that it works pretty well. If you get them too deep, you'll be able to see that hole drilled in there like you do on a pen when you can see the pen tube, and I think that would make it look ugly. You don't want to do that, piece of resin that's not dark enough, I guess. You could put some super glue in there now, sand it with a sanding stick. If you went a little too far, you can take your sanding stick, just give it a little sand. put a drop of super glue in there, it'll hide some of that hole. It'll make it shiny again on the inside. That's another tip. So now got it drilled. Now I'll start turning the end. Any questions? Doesn't sound like it.
So there was one question on the Star Bond that you used. Did you add any color into it, or is it just plain clear epoxy?
Just clear epoxy.
Okay, that's what I
I
thought.
believe
Okay, thank you.
Billy can correct me, but I believe you can color that epoxy if you wanted to. I haven't tried it, but I think you can.
Yes, you can. I have.
Thanks for the tip, Billy. I really like it.
My pleasure.
So now I'm just going to turn the light bulb. So I found it about 7/8 here on the end by the hole. Seems to be a nice look. So I'm just going to turn that down to roughly 7/8. And I'm going to kind of do it by eye. I made a couple of these now. And I kind of got a rough idea how I like them to look. You're just going to make it look like the screw-in part of a light bulb. And I'm going to use Easy Wood tool just because I know I'm going to run up on the resin, and I just like the idea. Cuts the resin better. And I'm just going to taper this down till I get where I think it's about 7/8. Run it up on the resin a little. And it's all by eye. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's not going to screw into any light socket. Nobody's going to pay attention to that part. And it is resin. It's a mess. I know a lot of people don't like resin for that reason. But I don't know how else you would do this without resin. So I'm just turning this down to basically make it look like this one on the end. Let's see, right there,
Can you hold it sideways?
like that.
Yeah, it helps to see the profile.
Okay. So that's the profile I'm shooting for.
Got an old toothbrush look close to the lathe will help get those resin shavings off of your ends.
Thanks for the reminder. I have it right here. And if you look at a light bulb, it doesn't have a straight taper. It's kind of, I don't know, got like a high spot towards the very bottom. But you can make them look however you like, whatever looks good to you. So now you can see I'm starting to make the shape. I already had this pretty close to 1 3/8 when I rounded it. So now I'm just cleaning that up. That looks pretty good. Now it looks a little square in the bottom. So you can either do this with a spindle gouge, or in this case, I'm going to use an Easy Wood detailer and just round this over just a little bit. Just ever so slightly. Then I'm going to take a little piece of sandpaper. I know that's pretty smooth. And I will sand it again later. I'm going to turn this off. I'm just going to sand this a little bit before I put the beads on it, just because it makes it a little easier. I'm sanding at about 750 RPMs. Just going to round that bottom off. About like so. And we'll put the beads in there, which I'm going to use another easy wood tool just because it really works good if I can find it. So this is an 1/8 inch beading tool. Fits on your medium sized hollowers.
Yeah.
And it works slick. So if you have this size tool already, all you got to do is buy the carbide tip. So now I'm going to come in here, get my light the right way. So it's not blinding me. I'm just going to pick a spot. I'm just going to run this in here till it hits the bottom and rounds it out. Then you're going to take the next bead. You're going to put the right hand point in the groove as close as you can. You get it a little off, you can fix it a little bit by rounding the tool over. And you now have your threads. Just as simple as that. Now, you could turn them if you wanted to, but that tool does a pretty fantastic job of cutting. I don't know how well that shows up on camera.
No, it looks good.
There. I'm quite a ways from my laptop, so I can't really see it real well. Now I'm just going to give it a little hand sand just to knock any ridges out of it. It's pretty smooth. And we're good there. Now it's just shaping the light bulb. And you can do that however you wish. Make it whatever shape you want. Use this one, I guess. I'm turning this about 1,500 RPMs. And now I'm just going to start working this down. Kind of put an imaginary mark in my head where I want this to start coming down.
Hey, it's starting to look like a light bulb.
Yeah. That's still light enough for you?
Yeah, yeah, it
Was
looks good.
I was getting a glare off of it. It was hard to see. Now you're just working it now till you get the shape of a light bulb? Now I'm just gonna cut a little groove, straighten up this back wall to give me a little more room to work. Try not to do that. And it doesn't matter what it did over here because I'm going to take that away anyways. It just was hitting the wall and couldn't get around the corner. And I want to save that piece that's in the truck, so I don't want to waste all that. Want to make something else out of it. Acrylic's too expensive to waste.
You'll have a lot of it on the shop floor to repurpose.
Right. Now I'm going to switch to the number one hollower just because it's a smaller cutter and I can get down in there a little farther. You want to get this as far as you can before you flip it around. And you can stop once in a while, check it. Looks like a light bulb.
Yeah, it does.
Like it might have came loose a little bit from the epoxy, actually.
Oh no.
We'll find out. If it does, I have another one. Yep. So it came loose. Well, that's a good opportunity to show you how to fix it. Okay.
I thought I was seeing things, but apparently I wasn't.
So it did come loose a little bit. And that was probably that catch that I got there. The other ones I had didn't do that. So this is a good opportunity to show you how to fix that. So this is the epoxy that I used. It's 2 equal parts. And it doesn't take very much. It goes a long ways.
Yeah,
Put
you always
about
That's
wind
good.
up mixing more than you need,
Yeah, always.
So
right?
I'm using about a pea-sized drop, pea-sized
Scott,
portion.
does the flat part of that acrylic you're going to be gluing to have some tooth to it?
Yes, it's been
Okay.
sanded with 100. It's pretty rough. Feels kind of smooth now because I think it polished itself a little bit. But I got a piece of 100 here we can fix that with.
Yeah, if not the 100, then the pocket knife.
I'm just
Yep.
going to scratch this up with some 100. And give this a little scratch. I'll mix up my epoxy. My glasses are fogging up. I'm just going to mix this up. This epoxy, when you order it, comes with these nice little trays and they clean up great.
What brand of epoxy is it?
Starbond?
Starbond. Billy, can you put a link for the Starbond epoxy that's used?
Sure thing.
So now we want to get that centered back up on that hole, right? So I'm just going to take my drill bit that I used to drill that. Stick it in that hole. Line it up with the kiss mark that's on the rest of it. Hold it as best I can. Get my stuff out of the way. And just put a little pressure on it for a few minutes. Because I'm going to flip it around here in a minute. And actually what I might do is do one of these other ones and flip it around for you. So that I can show you how to turn it on this, finish it off. Nothing like a demo. I've made 4 of these now, and it's the first one I've had come apart.
Well, it's a great way to show how to conquer it when something happens. So,
Yep. And we all know that acetone cleans up the epoxy, right?
yes.
Before it dries. So this spatula that they give you, the epoxy doesn't stick to it, but I still clean it off since I got the acetone out to clean my fingers. And then I just wipe the tray out too right away. And any residue that's left in there, you can peel out after it dries. It doesn't stick to these cups either. The
When you
acetone,
get done cleaning there, Scott, can you slightly raise your camera up? We've got
sure,
the chuck and the turning at the very top of the screen right now.
not a problem. How's that?
Perfect.
Better?
Yes.
So that I probably, it says it cures in 10 minutes to the point where you can work with it. But I don't want to take a chance of it exploding because I kind of really like that light. Looks nice.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. If I mix color in it, I give it an extra 10 minutes. So I let it go 20 and I've never had a problem.
Right. Well, I don't want you guys to sit here for 20 minutes and wait since I have other pieces.
But that's only if I add colorant to it.
So I'm just going to slip this out of here carefully. Set it aside. And let's see. Man, you can think a piece is clean and you still get epoxy all over your hands.
Yeah.
Great chance to show you a design opportunity. So we'll do this one that's already round and has the hole all the way through it. I'm just going to lightly put pressure on that just to hold it. Bring up my tailstock. Make sure I got it in just far enough to catch it under the jaws just a little bit. Wow, got that pretty centered.
Sun must have
Oh,
set in the west.
must have. So we'll begin again.
No, it's all good.
Good thing I had an extra one set up, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's a great thing.
That Rachel
Demo
Ray
what-
effect.
Demo 101.
Yeah, amen.
So
Yes, always.
At least with a lot of us.
and I am using a negative rate cutter too, by the way.
This is also good, having a demo like this where carbide is being used. We have very few folks using carbide during the demonstration, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are using carbide. So this is good.
Resin cuts different. Right? That other resin was polyacrylic. And it doesn't cut as nice. It's not as forgiving. It's chippy. Their own your acrylic stay with your resins.
Yes.
They're a lot nice, much easier to work. You can see how much nicer streamers I'm getting. Not as chippy, messier.
Yes, the Lumilite turns better than
Used Royal Palm. Unfortunately, nobody kept up with the distribution of that stuff. I was in the same boat. Illuminite was, and then I tried God resin.
But you can see how quick that was, how I went from basically nothing to something in just a short period of time. I'm just going to come back and clean this up a little bit. This cuts so much nicer. I like this a lot better.
Scott, did you give yourself enough room for that bulb?
Oh yeah. I'll show you a little trick when I get to the other way. That's why I made the expanding chuck. Because these blanks are just a hair short for this.
Gotcha.
So, but you can see even with this detail tool how much nicer it cuts. Yeah, it's a little chippy, but it's mainly the guy using it. And I'm also not using a negative rake here. That makes a difference too. Never, negative rakes would be definitely better. But I don't have one for that tool right at the moment. Now I'm going to go back to my number one hollower and just clean that up a little bit. Now, before I go too nuts, I got to find my little story stick that's for this piece of resin. Because this one's got the hole drilled all the way to just about to the end. So there's my marks. And that's where the end of the hole is. So I'm still good there where I won't cut into the hole. So make yourself a story stick when you drill the hole all the way in there so that you can don't part it off and end up with a hole in the bottom. So now I'm just going to give this a light sand and I'll put my beads on there. Actually, I might taper that down just a little more. That looks pretty good.
It does. But you're going to put your threads in?
Yep, but I'm going to give it a little sand beforehand. I don't want to
Oh,
sand
okay.
the tops of the threads off. I want this
Right,
to be
right.
as smooth. So I'm sanding with 320 here. Because if you look at a manufactured light bulb, they're not shiny smooth. I mean, they're a stamped piece of aluminum or brass or whatever they use for their light bulbs, depending on the manufacturer. And it's nice to give this just a little touch up because you're going to stay away from this end now when you turn it over. Now I'll put my rings in there. Down just a little bit. Give it just a little sand. I know I didn't do that the last time, but so there, you're basically got that end done. So now I'm going to flip this over, change chucks and flip this over. So if anybody's got questions or wants to ask something, now's the time to do it. Whoops. Good thing I got a catch can down here. So I put boxes underneath my lathe to catch all the stuff that comes off my lathe. It's a little wider. It's actually a small tote, and it catches all my sawdust, and then I don't have to sweep it off the floor. Another tip for you. Now we'll switch jaws. Turn that off. Guess I got to put it on the light bulb first. Screwdriver. So all I did now is slipped it in there, and I'm going to
That
tighten
might
this
help.
up. Yep, I'm going to tighten this up. You don't have to go nuts, just till you feel good tension on there. The other key thing is to make that bottom flat too. That helps you keep it somewhat centered.
Oh no. Did Scott lose his connection?
It looks like we lost him.
There we go.
Yay.
He's muted. He must be rummaging for something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
My computer got unplugged and ran out of battery.
Oh,
Somehow it got unplugged. Must have slid the chair and it came unplugged.
you must have an elf in there.
Yep, something. So I got a little pinhole in the backside here that I used when I started this whole thing because I roughed it between centers, so I had a center mark on this backside. Now, if I can find my story stick, got my story stick here. Line it up right there. I'm going to take a white pencil, just so I know where the bottom of the hole is, which is right there. But just a little pressure on there. Don't have to go crazy here. Now I'm going to take real light cuts. I don't want this to break off again. Just to get that down to that white mark. Or close to it. The other thing is you notice it likes to slip on that chuck a little bit. So can't get crazy here.
It's a good time to practice cutting as slow as you can.
Yep. The other thing that makes it bad, this blank has garland in it. And I don't know if it's artificial garland or if it's actual metal garland, but it dulls the tools. And it seems like it catches. Sometimes they don't cut off as good as other times. And this is the problem I had with the way Carl did it. As soon as it started to slip a little, or you put too much pressure on it, it would heat up that hot glue, and then it wanted to come loose.
Starting to come along.
Yep. Now I'm going to stop and check it again with my story stick just to make sure that I got it far enough. Just a little more.
Good morning, Carl.
Putting people to sleep, am I?
Oh no, he was napping early, way earlier. He's catching the good stuff now, though.
So you can see I got this a little skinny on the end, but it's up to you. You can make it a design opportunity. It can be a different shaped light bulb, that's all.
One of them newfangled LED ones.
Yeah. Well, it could be like what were them other ones used to come on that had the bubbling water in them? Can't remember what they were
Lava
called.
lamp.
Lava lamps, that's it. Lava light bulbs. But you can kind of see where it's hollow and where it's solid, approximately, because you can see how the light's coming through it. Can you see that? So it's got to be hollow right there and more solid down here.
Yep.
So you just change the profile of the light bulb a little bit. Maybe you make it a little skinnier.
Yeah, that's definitely one you don't want to funnel.
No, because you wouldn't be able to fix it. And it doesn't have to be a perfect light bulb. It's your interpretation of a light bulb, right?
True.
Exactly.
Well, it's not the best looking light bulb in the world, but it's not the worst either. I'm just going to rough that up a little bit. Take my other tool, clean it up. Change the shape of the light bulb just a little bit.
What I'm set up to do on my next set of projects is to do old-fashioned light bulbs.
It's kind of an interesting shape. Maybe I can take it down here a little bit. Maybe that'll help. It's different. So I'm not brave. That's not too bad a shape. Soften it up a little bit when I sand it here a little. You can see I'm pretty thin right there.
Looks like a flame light bulb shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was thinking. Might look neat. They do make those balloon lights that flicker. They make a flickering version I've seen online. So this shape might be kind of neat for a flickering light bulb. Might be different. The other thing is I probably could have got away with not drilling the hole quite as deep, and this blank would have helped. You know, probably wouldn't have needed to be that deep. As you can see in this other one, if I hold it up here, it's actually a little shorter. So I probably over drilled the hole just a little bit. Gonna sand this with some 320 and then I'll sand it up later. because everybody doesn't want to watch me sand all the way to the end. Polish it, I should say, all the way to the end.
Polish it.
Another great tool that I have that I bought at an estate sale, I bought an old-fashioned paper cutter to cut my sandpaper. It works great.
I use mine for cutting veneer.
It works good for that too. I just want to get this kind of sanded to 320, and then I'll polish it off camera. But I'll show you how to cut the end off, and then I'm show you how I did the end. So I have an old back saw. Actually, I think it's really made for doing dovetail joints. That's what I use to cut it off.
1-2 cross cut.
Yep. And I'm just going to cut this off. Very carefully so I don't break it. Come in. So I got it that far. Now I'm just going to very carefully get my tailstock out of the way. Take my number 1 hollower. Hold my fingers on the backside. Don't watch this. I'm doing this one-handed. I got this tucked in my armpit. Like this. And I'm kind of squatting down because I want to kind of hold a little pressure on this. And I'm just going to break that corner ever so slightly. And try not to break that off. And I'll come back with some 220 if I can find it. Move my tool rest out of the way. Way out of the way. I'm just going to hold this now. And just clean that up on the end. Round it off however you want. Blown light bulbs aren't perfect on the end. If you got old-fashioned ones. Now, to finish polishing that, it's obviously a little wobbly for doing that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to steal a Dane trick. I'm going to take my tailstock and change my center. You have a one-way style live center. This works real good. I take the pin out of the middle. Put a piece of paper towel up here. Put that back in there. Put just a little bit of pressure on there. Tear off the extra sandpaper. And now I can sure everything's tight, little pressure, lock that down. Now I can finish doing my polishing. And that last little bit you can polish by hand by holding it with your other hand, support back here. And I'll just
Good trick.
I wonder who I learned that, where I learned that.
Yeah.
Who
I know.
needs a rubber, Chucky?
That's
Right.
right. But if you turn the light bulb just right, what I did when I did the first one, I actually used that tip to determine what the end of my light bulb was going to look like.
What are you polishing with?
I'm using micro mesh and water.
Oh, okay.
So I just bought some new micro mesh and I learned something. If you only have to go to 320 and then you start with your micro mesh because the first pad of micro mesh is equal to 400. So there's no sense in wasting your time going to 400 when you're going to start out at 400, right?
Right.
And I'll just take that up. I'll just do it quick through the grits. I may have to do it more than once. I don't know how good I had it. The other thing is you could seal this wood before you start if you wanted to. Put some sanding sealer on it or something. I usually leave these sit overnight and then I just come back and they dry out and I just clean them up then. So that, and I let my micro mesh pad soak in water overnight so that they get nice and moist. Then you don't have to worry about them burning. They don't burn on the pad. They run a little cleaner. Get a clean piece of paper towel. You should wipe it off between grits, theoretically,
Yes.
because otherwise you're just sanding the grit back in. The other thing I do with my micro mesh pads is once in a great while I take them in the house and wash them with soap and water to get any residue out of them. They seem to last a little longer that way. And they've gotten quite pricey. So I buy the big pads and I cut them on that same paper cutter that Billy and I were just talking about into 1-inch strips, and you can get 3 of them out of one big pad. So it makes that $30 purchase go a little farther.
Sure does.
I put my micro mesh pads in a nylon mesh bag and throw them in with my shop clothes. In
My
the
wife
in the washer.
My wife would kill me.
I put mine in the sock.
This is going to be kind of a pretty blank, I think, once it gets polished.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it is.
It's looking good already. As a tip, whenever I'm polishing, water polishing acrylic, I'll put one of my silicone mats down over the lathe bed.
Oh.
And as I'm polishing, I have a spray bottle. And so I'm constantly spraying the piece. That way uh, the conduct that's being generated from sanding is constantly washed off.
Remember the old Sham Wow commercials?
Yes.
Mhm.
That's what that orange thing is.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
I
That's
have an old
normally what
vinyl. I have an old vinyl tablecloth I just lay across my waist.
I kind of like this shape now that it's polished. It does look like an old flame light.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the old fashioned lights.
Yep. Whoops.
Folks that are thinking about dropping off, you don't want to drop off because I do have an announcement to make after the demo that's pertinent to the group here. So,
I'm just about done here. There's one more grit to go.
oh, there's no rush.
And then I'll wipe it off and we'll see how it looks. I'll actually take it off and we'll put a light bulb in it and see how it turned out. Because I'm curious myself. Wow. That
Yeah,
shined
that
up
looks
pretty
great.
nice.
Yeah, garland looks good in there.
So the
Hey,
last
Scott,
step I do, I
Scott,
use
can
a
you explain, Scott, real quick, can you explain what garland is? I tried to explain what it was earlier, but probably wasn't a
garland's
great,
what, well, us old folks will know what garland is. It's what you used
right.
to
It's,
throw
it's
on
just different
Christmas
thing.
trees. It was a
It's like
stringy,
cordage. You wrap it
You
yeah,
around
guys
it's
the
are
a
tree.
talking. You guys are talking about tinsel.
Tinsel.
tinsel,
No, it's
sorry.
not. No, no, it's not
Garland
tinsel.
is garland
Garland
is a
tinsel.
strand.
Yep,
It's
garland tinsel is what
it's
it
on a
is.
rope. It's on a string, and you wrap the tree. Tinsel
Yes.
you throw on it.
Yep,
Yes.
it's and the stuff that this was made out of was actually garland tinsel. I watched the guy make this on YouTube, Resin Works. So he took strings of tinsel that was strung together, in a string form.
That's garland.
Yeah, a garland, but it was actually tinsel. It was the tinsel that was made into a garland for like
Into a
putting on
garland
wreaths
string.
and
Okay.
yep,
Right.
yep.
Yeah.
And he threw it in the resin that way so that he could dunk it in there and control the volume. You understand what I'm saying? He put it in
Yes.
his
Yes.
1-inch tube and he had
Yep.
it on
So you guys.
hanging on a string so it wouldn't float to the top or the bottom.
So this stuff is thicker than just like thin strands, right? It's like
Correct.
an inch
Yes.
or two thick. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Right.
All right.
Yep.
yeah. It's like
Thank you.
it's like an inch and a half in diameter, but it's real.
Right.
Like I said, it's a whole bunch of fuzzies on the cordage.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the same material,
It's old
Matt.
school. It is really old.
Yep. It's the same material that what you threw on the trees, except it's wrapped around a cord. It's embedded in a cord.
Yeah,
This that
no,
I'm
I
holding
quit-
up is.
You
this
ought
is
to quit
garland.
saying that it's old stuff. I know what you're talking about with no problem. You just got to cut that out.
Well, hey, I'm younger than all of y'all, but I know it because my parents were born in 27, so that's
Guys,
why I know all this old
sell
school stuff.
they still sell this stuff. So it's
Yep.
I'm on Amazon looking at it. So it's
So
like,
so there it is, and that's cool. I like that. That's pretty cool. Well, now we'll see if we can get it off of there without breaking it.
don't forget to do the end yet, Scott.
Oh, I'll put it back. I can put it back on. That's the nice part about this truck
Okay.
is that it can be put back on and it'll still stay centered because I can put it in this cone. Now, where did I put the truck key? That might help.
Oh,
I said it. Oh, there it is.
I
That's when
believe I have magnets on the side of my lathe to hold the chuck key right where I need it.
I have one on a magnet, and this one usually goes in the tool holder. But when the computer went down, I had it in my hand, and guess where it got set? Next to the computer.
Gotcha.
So now I'll just take this off of here. Unscrew the bolt. And because this shoulder's square and the bottom is square, it's going to go on there pretty much square no matter where I put it. Now you're just going to tap this back, release that pressure. Slips off of there pretty slick, don't it?
sure does.
Yep.
We'll find our light. We'll turn off some lights. There you go.
Hold it down a little bit. Hold
Bring
it
it
down by your chest. Yeah,
Cool.
it looks good.
Very nice, Scott.
Shut the
Very
other light
nice.
off on
Thank
your left
you.
side. Shut the light off on your left side.
There you go.
Wow.
That
That's
was
fun.
good.
Very nice.
Awesome. That looks great.
Yeah, because I came through there pretty nice.
Yep.
That's
So if you
cool.
want it, so where this cloudiness is in the bottom, you can see how it's kind of got a cloudy light tube in it. To get
Mhm.
rid of that, just put some CA glue in there and it'll disappear.
Wow.
Huh.
Okay.
That cloudiness is from the drill bit, not making
Yeah.
a smooth polished hole.
Right.
So if you want to, I'll turn the lights back on here. Just give me a minute.
I do.
So if you want to, you take a wooden dowel like this and some of that Plastex or Colgate toothpaste, put it in the bottom of the hole, and then you can polish the bottom of the hole with the toothpaste because original Colgate toothpaste is coarse enough grit to polish the inside of that. And you'll lose that cloudiness without having to swirl some CA glue in there. But you can actually see, if I get the light just right, and hold it just right, you can actually see that piece of sandpaper turning in there.
Yes.
Right.
And you can polish that. You could go through all the grits and polish that. I have sanding sticks like this with different grits glued to them. It's just a dowel. And I just stick it in there, sit in front of the TV and work it back and forth and polish it.
Do you have a pile of sanding dust on the side of your recliner?
Yep. Actually, I do it on my pants and my wife gets mad.
Right. No, I know. I get it. We've all been there.
So then you just polish that inside, and you could take some Plastex, glue a little piece of felt on the bottom here, or you could stuff some paper towel in the bottom, squirt your Plastex in there, put the paper towel in the bottom, and just use your stick as an agitator. And then you can rinse the Plastex, any residue from the Plastex out, you can rinse out with Windex or water or whatever you want to rinse it out with. So that's how I would finish the inside. If I wanted to polish the inside, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to dump a little bit of CA glue in the bottom.
Yeah, I think we all agree CA would be faster and quicker. Same result.
Right. Yep. And the drill bit that you use to drill your resin, only drill wood with it and resin with it. Don't ever take it to a piece of metal because it'll wreck the inside of your holes. You'll be sanding forever. And then to put your light in, I guess I should explain that. At the end, to put your light in, I use gel CA glue, and I'll glue that in there. Right now you can see it falls in there. So I'll just use some thick CA, thicker, or the gel. And this one I'll probably use gel because it's a little bit bigger. It's wobbled itself out on the very end. And actually it was from me sanding because I was sanding in this one earlier. So you don't want to sand this upper wood section when you go to stick this light in here. And these lights do unscrew. And there's three little, I'm not going to take them out because they'll fall out, but there's three little watch batteries in there, flat batteries. And the other thing I'm going to do from now on, see if I can find them, because I don't know what I did with my little white piece of paper. So when I make these for craft shows, I'm only going to glue them into where this little tab is. Because that little tab, if somebody walks by at the craft show and screws it in, it doesn't light up. I'll just have one that's already lit up that I'll keep for myself as a demo piece to show them how it lights up, that you got to pull that tab out. It'll save the batteries.
Cool.
Oh, good idea.
And if the customer really wants to see it lit up, you can unscrew this, pull this out carefully, screw it in, light it up, save this little tab in your fingers, tip the ornament upside down, get it started, shake it or tap it a little bit. And you can get it back in there between the batteries with a little jiggling. Now it's going to make a liar out of me. I've done it on every other one. There it goes. and you can stick it back in there. If the customer really wants to see it lit up, you can do that. It's just a way for you to save on putting batteries in. If you don't sell them all this way, you don't have to worry about them coming on in the box getting jiggled around. Because if they turn off, you don't back it out far enough. You just back it out till the light goes off. You can bump them and they'll flicker. You can see how that one flickers.
Mm-hmm.
Put a little pressure on the cap and then it flickers. So then you'd run out of light bulb. The minute you wanted to use it, then it'd be dead, you know. So that's my demo for the night. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Scott.
That was a great demo.
Very good,
Anybody
Scott.
have
Great
Thank you,
demo,
Scott.
Scott.
Does
Thank you.
anybody have any questions?
Well
Really?
done.
Very enjoyable.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Yeah, thank
So
you,
if
Scott.
anybody has any questions on the actual project that he did, or the epoxy of how he joined the wood to the resin blank, or on his neat little collet chuck to reverse compression, now's the time to ask. Otherwise, we will move on with the program.
Show us again the collet chuck.
Which one?
The big
The-
ring.
The expand this one?
The reverse
that.
expanding.
Yes, that one.
Well, yeah, do that one. Show that one.
So all I did was put a piece in my truck, in that same truck that we were just working on. Or actually, it's over here now. So I just put a piece in here that was already round that I turned between centers that would fit in here. Which this one happens, it started out as 2 1/8, because that's the perfect diameter when that's open to the correct size. So you just put that in there. Like this. I turned it to 2 1/8. I parted it off or made it as long as I wanted. It started out as a big long piece. And I parted it off, got it to the length I wanted here, which happens to sit right against the back of my jaws. Then I clamped it down in here and I drilled it with whatever sized round shaft you need. So whatever size you need, 1 inch, 2 inch, 1.5 inches, anything that's smaller than these jaws closed, you drill that Forstner bit hole in there and try not to hit your chuck. You know,
Right.
you can drill it. You could put a piece of cardboard back there or something just so you don't hit your chuck and wreck your Forstner bit, you know.
Mhm.
So then after you take it after you get your hole drilled all the way through it, so it's like this now. And you can see it's a little oval. And that's because I took it over to the bandsaw and just cut a bandsaw width out of it. I held it in a pair of screw clamps so that I wouldn't cut my fingers, and ran it through my bandsaw and just cut one side, turned it around and cut the other side.
Okay.
And now you have a collet that will fit, you know, anything from like this one will fit 1.5 inches all the way down to basically 1 inch, or however tight I can squeeze it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's so this one is compression and this one's expansion. They both do the same thing and they're both the same type of idea, except one's compression and one's expansion. So this one expands out to grab, where that one crushes in to grab. Hopefully I didn't make that too complicated. That's the engineer coming out in me.
No, it's great. Makes a lot
and-
of sense.
Thanks, Scott.
An easy way to make not really an expansion chuck, but an internal chuck like your expansion chuck would be to make a pin chuck.
Right. So, but you got to have, you know, how do you make a pin chuck that's that small? That's only 7/16, roughly.
Right.
That's a pretty small set of pin jaws. Where an expansion, this is endless. So I could only made this so that it's only a 1/2 inch long. Or this one happens to be an inch long because that's what my piece of wood is.
Right.
You could make them any length you wanted to grab something, anything small. This will get
True.
used. This is going to get used a ton. And
Yep.
actually, I'm going to make different sizes. I thought about making some even bigger, where you could grab bigger holes, because you always put your hole in first, right? Anytime you're
Yeah.
turning something, you always put the hole in first. Well, when you want to go turn it around and it's tapered, how do you hold it? You got to have a tool
Right.
like this to hold it.
Right. Well, back when I was making a lot of closed end pins where you weren't using the end caps, I
Right.
would turn a closed end pin. How are you going to hold that? So I made pin chucks. I've got like 4 different sizes.
Yep. So it's endless what you can do with just a little
Yes.
bit of thought process.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Sure, it's got a lot of people thinking right now. All right. Well,
And-
if anybody else has any questions or comments, guess we'll go with that then.
Hey,
Scott,
Scott,
Great
hell of a
job,
demo
Scott.
you put on
Job,
tonight.
Scott.
Great job.
Good job.
Great
Really
demo.
appreciate it.